The spotlight. Every athlete wants it. The big moment, the winning shot, the roaring crowd, the recognition. But what if the spotlight isn't just about you? What if it's a responsibility? Shad Martin calls it the sportlight, that privilege athletes have to influence others, and especially for athletes, teaches something radical. Your character matters more than your stats. Your impact matters more than your highlights. How you treat opponents matters as much as how you beat them. Fear is a poor chisel with which you carve your future. Melissa and I went to an E4A event and walked away with principles that changed how we think about competition, leadership, and life. Eyes up, win the hour, compete without contempt, be a lifter. Today, Shad Martin breaks down what it means to use your platform, whether you're an Olympian or a Little League parent, to make a positive difference. This is Find Your Challenge. Hey, Shad, thanks for jumping on Find Your Challenge here with us. I really, truly appreciate it. I have been to a couple of your presentations, resonated immediately with your message, with especially for athletes. And actually, Melissa, my wife, went to one without me and came home immediately and said, you have to get a hold of Shad. You have to connect with him. You have to be friends with him because what, especially for athletes, is doing is right up your alley. And so we want to dig into some of those principles and what you're teaching. But quickly, like just drop the bomb on us. Like, what is, especially for athletes, what is the mission? What are you and your organization trying to do?
Yeah, so the founder of Especially for Athletes is Dustin Smith. Dustin Smith did a lot of QB training, and as you're training QBs, you do a lot of leadership training.
Right.
And so he was training these QBs on being leaders in their community, and it's not just what happens on the field, it's the way you treat people. It's using what we call the sportlight,
right,
that extra attention that's given to athletes because they play sports. That is, you could use that sportlight to do good, not just to attract attention to yourself. And so it started there, and Dustin and I were college baseball teammates, and I still remember where we were on the golf course at Hobble Creek in Springville, Utah, when he said, "Hey, Shad, we need to take this a little bit beyond. I feel like this message is a little bit bigger than the QBs that I've been training." And so we started to meet with groups and train groups and hold events. And now it's been 12, 13 years that we've been doing Especially for Athletes, and it's grown. Now we're all throughout Utah, up into Idaho, and into Arizona. Dustin flew out to Delaware to meet with the team and athletic program that came upon our podcast and what we do and our book. And so yeah, that's the origins of Especially for Athlete. Dustin Smith is the founder. I'm the co-founder, and we've loved the message, and I'm sure we're going to dig into the message a little bit. That's the origins of it.
And just so we're right up here up front, you mentioned several different kind of media outlets there. You mentioned a book, you mentioned a podcast that I know is very active because I listened to it, and you mentioned presentations, right? And so are there other ways that people can experience kind of the messaging for, especially for athletes, or are those the main? So just like go through and shout out the topics and titles of each of those, so people can hopefully not leave this one quite yet, but they can note how to get to your stuff from there.
Yeah, our podcast is called Especially for Athletes Podcast.
Okay.
And very original. We came and I mean, if you go to e4a.org, e4a.org, we have all of our links there. We have a podcast. We have very active social media pages. We go around and we do presentations, and we'll go to Pee Wee. We've met with Pee Wee teams, and we've met with professional teams.
Right.
And so we go and do trainings, teams, large trainings. We do business trainings. We do oftentimes our message resonates with more than just athletes.
Right.
And the principles apply to business and teamwork and creating a great culture within a business. And so you can see everything we do at e4a.org and search out on any platform, Especially for Athletes podcast, and we're there.
Cool. Let's dig in. How about, let's start, you mentioned it already, the Sportlight. I love that, and the kind of the imagery that comes along with that. How is the Sportlight a privilege, right? That's kind of what we're talking about, the essence of that. Sportlight is a privilege, and what is the responsibility that comes with it? Just break that down for as we jump into the message here.
Yeah. So a Sportlight is a privilege because there's a lot of people who would love to be great at sports.
Yeah.
And some are blessed with talent and ability and opportunity that allows them to excel in sports. And as someone excels in sports, our culture gives them an increased amount of attention.
Right.
And that attention is a two-way sword. Like, it's a double-edged sword. Everything an athlete does is more powerful. And sometimes that truth is a great thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a horrible thing. Because if you're walking through the halls of a school, for example, and you're picking at people, mocking people, making fun of people, or excluding people, if you're an athlete in the Sportlight, it is more hurtful. It hurts worse because it just seems to have a bigger impact.
Right.
The other side of that sword is that when an athlete does something kind, when they give a compliment, when they bring someone in, we like to talk about that. We don't talk about including people. No one wants to be included.
Right.
They want to be valued. And when an athlete recognizes the value in another person and is kind toward them, that Sportlight then makes that kindness more powerful. So we often tell athletes, you can't choose what you do. Like, you can't turn off the Sportlight.
Right.
You can only choose whether it's power for good,
right,
or
how it's
power
shining.
for bad.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So I mean, and honestly, like, as you described that, for in my world, I kind of went to like different movies, right, where maybe you have seen positive and negative examples of that Sportlight, and you think of, unfortunately, the very, very stereotypical, like the jock walking down the high school hall wearing his Letterman's jacket, and he picks on a bully, or he bullies someone, right? Someone who's, like, I'm thinking like Spider-Man or something silly, something silly like that, right? Like the negative use of that. But can you think of someone, or a real life example or media example of like a prime example of what that Sportlight might look like, or how that can impact people's lives for good?
Yeah, as we interview a lot of professional and college athletes on our podcast, we'll often ask them that question, like, when have you seen someone use their Sportlight for good?
Right.
The funny thing is, with our media today, is this stuff is happening every day, all the time.
Yeah.
These athletes are visiting hospitals. These athletes are going and taking time with a kid who's been through something tough at their school. They're raising money and forming foundations and building schools and all of these things that they're doing. And rarely does that get attention. What gets attention is all of the negative.
All the negative ones, right?
But there's one of my favorite stories came from kind of two successive presentations. One year I went and I did a presentation at a school, and we talked about this idea of valuing people, not leaving people out. And we give this invitation to even think of those on your own team. When you get together with people, notice who's not there.
Right.
Notice what teammates are not there, and why are they not there? Is it because they don't feel welcome, or do they not want to be there? And if they don't want to be there, that's fine. But what if they just aren't brave enough to hang out with their own team, or to make the steps necessary to do that? And so we talk through those things. We talk about looking out, keeping your eyes up, and doing the work, and looking for people who are in need, doing the work to help them. Well, shortly after the presentation, there was this girl who had just recently moved into a community, and she was just feeling left out. She mad at her parents, how could you take me out of this high school where I had roots, and now you put me here and no one's accepting me. I'm not connecting with anybody. And her mom said, no, you just need to put yourself out there. And she's like, Mom, I'm trying. And she said, you just have to text people, we're having a party this Friday. you need to text people. I'm going to buy like 10 pizzas and a bunch of
Yeah.
soda, and you're having people over. So this girl started to text people. And come to find out later, one of the young people who got the text, it was a drill team here in Utah.
Uh-huh.
They sent out a text to the rest of the drill team and said, "Who is this? Like, does anyone even know who this is?"
Right.
This young lady who had been to our presentation, she was wearing her eyes up, do the work wristband.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, "This is an opportunity for me to do the work."
Right.
So she decided that she was going to go to this party. She could tell that her teammates were being kind of negative about it. She shows up to this party, and that night she was the only young person who showed up to that party.
Wow.
10 pizzas, coolers full of soda. Now that sounds like a sad story, right?
Yeah.
But she said, "Look, I would love to start hanging out with you. Come sit by me at lunch. I would love to introduce you to some people." And that girl like helped this young lady break into the social circles at her school.
Right.
A year later, I go back to do the presentation at the same school, and 2 moms and 2 girls come up to me. And there was a mom who was in tears saying, "This girl saved my daughter's life." Like,
Yeah.
she helped our family so much. And so, yes, it's professional athletes going to hospitals.
Right.
But what we try to help young people realize is if you will just keep your eyes up in your school, you're going to see dozens of opportunities every single day to use your spotlight to help and lift those around you.
Right.
And our principle is seek to bless, not to impress. And we emphasize in our presentation, as you probably know, the word seek.
Right. Yep.
We aren't talking about taking passive opportunities. We're trying to get athletes to be intentional, to understand I have the spotlight. Everything I do is powerful. And if I'm kind, it can have a powerful impact on other people. And we ask them we ask them to seek out opportunities to use that spotlight to help and lift those around them.
And what I love about that is like when you're seeking, right, that's a different mindset, right? As opposed to just waiting for things coming at you, right? The act of seeking, of going out there and looking for ways to help. I mean, it's really a way of expressing humility and gratitude at the same time, really, in a way. And what I would love for you to kind of talk about is like, you've got youth, maybe younger than high school, you've got high school, you've got collegiate, you've got pro level. How does it, like, how can it apply? How can a message for someone 14 and under, right? And maybe on the other extreme of that, you mentioned it a little bit with like going and visiting hospitals, but what experience have you seen with it in the pro levels? Like, I think that's an amazing thing to think about as well. Like, you've got maybe a pro athlete out making their living doing this, and how can they use this seeking guideline to improve what's people around them, right? And the leadership around them.
Well, let me start with that 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Because Sean, I don't know, you've probably watched your kids go throughout school, and some of our hardest experiences that we've seen have been in those junior highs.
Oh yeah, like amen.
And so, a while ago, Dustin and I started to realize like we're talking a lot to high schools, and it's almost like by that point, those kids have been hurt so much, they've got in behavior patterns. And so I think for the 14-year-olds, any parents who listen to this, if you'll take your kids aside and if you'll teach them that principle of seeking to bless other people instead of to impress other people. A lot of times the idiotic things that junior high kids do to one another, they're trying to impress people. If we could just flip that and not care as much about impressing people and turn our eyes to how can I lift and bless other people, that will change everything for them.
Right.
And it's not just for the kids around them. My own daughter gave a talk in our church group, and she said something that I felt was so profound. Of course, we've embedded these principles into she's heard me talk about this a lot. Let's just say that. She's
that's fair.
Tennis player at her high school, and she made a statement. She's just getting ready to graduate high school. And she said, it's really hard to be self-conscious when you're being conscious of other people.
Right.
And to me, that is a super powerful statement. And so I think it not only blesses those around 14-year-olds, it also blesses the 14-year-old if they'll start looking at life that way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask this question. You said you've been doing this for almost a decade now, 10 years or over or less than, or about how long have you been doing this? Over 10. So what's the trend that you have seen in athletes? Like has the impact of social media and the professionalization of youth sports, has that focused people away from this seeking, right, and the spotlight? And obviously your message is trying to reverse that, but like, how do you see those two sides of the continuum with each other? Like, what have you seen in terms of trends in youth sports now?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say that bully who's slamming people into lockers,
yeah,
we haven't met many of those.
Yeah.
That's totally fictitious in my
We
mind.
hope that is, right? Like they like to use that story in the movies, but like that's fantastic to hear.
Most of our young people, in fact, Dustin and I often say, all what we're trying to do is not take a bully and turn him into a blesser.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to take a bystander and turn him into a blesser,
Right.
Someone who kind of looks and sees needs, but doesn't have the own personal confidence to address the needs that they see in their school.
Right.
And so that bystander group is the group we're dealing with. I mean, the bully group now, they're almost fading away.
Really?
Right? There's just
that's great to hear.
I haven't met many of those. I think it's a total made up thing about athletes that they're like that. But a lot of athletes, we look at them and we see them performing on the field and we think that they are these just super confident, I could reach out to anybody, I could do anything. And the truth of the matter is that those incredible athletes or those beautiful girls on the drill team, they're just as self-conscious as everybody else.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is flip a switch in their mind and help them live outside of themselves. And as they do that, it does have a huge impact on them. We've talked about this on our podcast a lot of things have changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
As we've been doing this. I mean, the advent of social media and how easy it is for kids to get in trouble by posting one dumb thing.
Right.
But for the most part, young people are good and they want to do good. What we do is we are not an awareness program.
Right.
Like we don't go and just bring awareness to, hey, there's some mental health struggles at your school and there's lonely kids at your school. Like there's enough awareness programs. We want to be an action program. We actually want to go in and train young people. When we have our leadership council meetings, it's actual training. Here's how you could approach someone. Here's some things happening at your school. Council together as a leadership council and decide what you're going to do to address these issues at your school. And we train those things. And so, I mean, to your question, a lot's going to change over the next, NIL, it's creeping its way down into high school.
Yep, it is.
Where kids transfer high schools and they feel like they have to go a certain place to have an opportunity to get NIL in college. Like it's a lot of things are changing, but things were way different for you and me when we were in high school than it was for our parents.
Sure.
So by training these principles, we have 4 core principles, and we really believe like these things can keep kids steady through all the changes. And they're basic principles, but it's helpful to the young people.
And I'm aware of it through obviously the podcast, the book, the presentations at the school. But do schools contract with you to come in and do training and to run leadership councils? There's a deeper connection there, it sounds like, as well, that you can offer within from a training standpoint for either a team or an individual or a school? Break that down.
Yeah, there's a nominal fee for schools to participate in our program. a lot of times that's more for buy-in.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. Yeah, just to keep
Mo-
engaged.
uh,
Sure.
Most of the funding, the large majority of our funding comes from our donors
Yeah.
and those who believe in the program. But the schools, it helps with the materials that we give the school. You know, we give them bands and we give the leadership council books, and we produce videos. Like we have videos that we take snippets of our podcast, and we produce leadership lessons
Yeah.
that are designed for leaders, athletic leaders of a school, to come together for lunch once a month or whenever, however often they would like to do it, and to go through a 5-minute video that will set up a discussion that will help them be intentional about improving the culture of their school. Our program is pretty robust. It's not just going
Right.
and speaking to a group. We believe there has to be that training and that ongoing touch points. That's why we do our social media, is so kids are constantly seeing the messages that we share. That's why we do the podcast, is
Right.
we just feel like these are things that we could talk about a lot. The more frequently we talk about them, the more likely they are to take hold. So
All right, Shad, let's break it down. Each of we have a few key principles that, especially for athletes, want to bring in. The first one, we've mentioned that a little bit, is the eyes up, do the work. So let's break that down a little bit. It makes sense, but like let's talk about eyes up. Here we go. Your turn.
yeah. So when we say eyes up, do the work, at its basic level, eyes up means that we're being intentional, that we're looking for opportunities to help people. That when we're walking around in the community, when we're going through a
Right.
drive-through, when we're walking through the halls of our school, when we're at practice with our own teammates, when we walk into our home alone, if we don't recognize, or our home when we're done,
Yeah.
if we don't recognize that there's needs, then we'll never meet those needs, right?
Right. Right.
But it's not just enough to recognize it. There's tons of times where we see things happening in the world and we're like, man, that is so sad. I wish someone would go sit next to that kid. I
Yeah.
feel so bad for that kid that's sitting alone at lunch, right? Like
Yeah.
we see things, or we see a young mother trying to unload a cart of groceries with a crying kid, and it's cold, and she's trying to keep the cart from blowing into other cars. Like, just
Yeah.
keep your eyes up, just look for things. And then when you see them, when you see opportunities, do the work, lift people around you. And when you live that arrows out mentality, it makes your life better. It makes the community better. And because you're an athlete, as we've talked about extensively
Yep.
before this, it's even more powerful.
Yeah. I
And
love
so
it.
that's eyes up, look for it, do the work, address it.
Right. And so again, the topic of this podcast is find your challenge, right? So similar kind of ideas, like we trying to find ways for personal improvement, right? And the reason that I love this is that I think you mentioned it, that your daughter and her talk, but if you're looking for ways to seeking to help others, it really does help you forget about your own issues, right? Like it really does help put things in perspective, and help change that. And so, I personally love that. And we live in a world, like this is one of my favorite things. Like I travel a lot, and when I go through the airport, I purposefully put my phone away, right? And you walk around, and 95% of the world face down, right? They're face down, not looking around at the amazing things around them. And it's incredible to see that, and I love seeing people who are given this message, especially athletes and young people. Did you have maybe another story or something that kind of relates back to this change in perspective of how people have applied this eyes up, do the work, and the feedback that you've received from these teachings?
Yeah, I wish I would have brought some of the letters that come in. At the end of each of our presentations, we put up a QR code, and the kids fill out a
Mm-hmm.
survey if they would like to sign up for our program. And we have some questions there. One of my favorite statements that a young person has ever made, they simply wrote this sentence when it said, "What are you going to do because of the presentation tonight?"
Right.
The young person replied, "Today someone was lonely at our school, that won't be lonely tomorrow because I'm
That's
going to
awesome.
do the work. I
Right.
just, I mean, we really do have binders full of these
That's great.
responses from young people. The greatest joy for us comes not just seeing what they do for other people, but to see the light in their eyes and the joy that comes to them when, like you said, so many kids live their life like this right now.
Right. Yeah.
You'll walk up to a circle of kids.
Yeah.
They'll be standing in a circle and they're all looking at their
Right.
phones, right?
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. And we do talk specifically about technology and the impact that it's having on young people when they're just living in virtual reality all the time and there's people right in front of them that they could truly connect with and and have experiences with. And to see young people start to live outside of themselves
Mm-hmm.
and the joy that brings into their lives is one of the greatest joys of sharing the message that we share.
That's incredible. I love that. All right, second principle, and this is one of my favorite. Like they're all great, but I really enjoy this one. And this, when I went through the presentation, I have been a win the day kind of guy, right? Like I go out there and I think to myself as we go in, like we got to go out and win this day. But you break it down even further to win the hour. And like as I thought about that, I really love that because you go from task to task or from event to like and so just talk about winning the hour and kind of how we should break that down and how we should change the way we think about that.
Yeah. So, like you already said, we feel like transitions are important.
Yeah.
And we love the word, when we're talking win the hour, we love the word intentional.
Right.
So, we try to train young people and ourselves, right? That if we are intentional with our time and we direct it toward our goals, there's a well known speaker, Michael Ashler. He said,
Mm-hmm.
the bad news is time flies. The good news is you are the pilot.
Right.
We had Justin Sua on our podcast. Great episode. He's now the mental performance coach for the Dodgers.
Wow.
And when he was for the Tampa Bay Rays, as he was when he recorded the podcast, but he said that we either live a life by design or by default. And we love to talk to young people about what that means. A life by design is one that you are steering your time and your energy toward the things that matter most to you, that you really want to accomplish in life. But to be honest, Sean, like most people, and especially young people, they just let life happen to them.
Yeah.
And so what we found is to win the day, that's a big
word
to bite off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so instead, we talk to them about winning the morning. What's your morning routine? If you don't have a morning routine, I mean, everyone who's listening to this, if you don't have a morning routine, you can improve your life just simply by establishing a healthy morning routine. And then we talk to them about, okay, now you're walking into a math class or a history class. What would it look like to win that hour, to dominate that hour? And you were there. I asked them, what would you do? Give each other advice. And they say, sit in the front, take notes, put away distractions, yep. Right? So what we're saying is, if instead of just going in and let history class happen to you, as you're walking in, check in, okay, I'm going in this class.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit in the front. I'm going to take notes. I'm not going to flirt with Julie. I'm going to, I am going to put away my phone. I'm going to lock in. I'm going to ask questions if I have them. I'm going to go up to the teacher after and thank him or her for the lesson. I am going to pay attention to those around me and help them get concepts they don't get that I might get. Like, if you're intentional, this is what I'm going to do to win this next hour.
Yeah.
And then during the transition to the next thing, now you say, okay, I'm going to lunch. And you might think, oh, lunch, okay, that's when we let our hair down and don't be intentional. But, when you pay attention to really good athletes and what they're doing, being intentional about your nutrition, not eating a bunch of crud and then expecting your body
Yeah.
to run like it's, being fueled properly. Be intentional about your nutrition and keep your eyes up and look for people. I really want to find someone today that I could talk to that I've never talked to before that might be on the outskirts, right? Good nutrition, find someone to talk to. That's how I'm going to win this hour. If during the transitions, we'll just take 5 seconds to think, what do I need to do to win this next transition? Sean, you've probably had a bad day in your life. I've had bad
I have.
days in mine.
Yeah. Every once in a while.
Imagine the power of transition if you just say, okay, I've had a tough day at work. Now I'm going to lock in here and I am going to go into my family, and this is how I'm going to act. I'm going to be intentional about the way I act
Yeah.
so that I'm a blessing to my family instead of a burden or whatever.
Right.
Like if we'll just be intentional about that, we'll be better. Now we say go 16-0, meaning there's 16 hours of the day that you're awake. Try to be intentional about every hour, steer it toward those things that matter most to you, your time and energy, and then get a good 8 hours of sleep,
Right.
which a lot of us skip that step, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to go 16-0.
It is.
But can you imagine if you just start stacking days of 16-0, 14-2, 15-1, 13-3, and you've been
That's
living
a good record, right? 13-3. You're winning in that
it's
world.
not good enough for the college football playoff. We've
That's
learned here.
Right.
But it's a good,
11-1.
like you're doing good, right? And
Yeah.
you're being intentional and you're steering your time and energy toward the things that matter most and the goals you really want to accomplish. And so that's what we try to teach young people. It's amazing how many young people have just never been taught that concept of time management and of being intentional. And you have limited energy. So if you're just letting your energy go wherever it goes, you'll never become extraordinary. We love that word. You could be ordinary by living a life by default, but you're not going to be ordinary, or you're not going to be extraordinary. You have to be intentional to be extraordinary.
I have to say that I love this one. I've spent the last probably 6 to 8 months really just trying to dial in my own personal, especially my morning routine, right?
Yeah.
And I have done that now and dialed that down into a point now where, like, if I don't get, it's not that I don't feel great, but I feel great when I dial in my morning routine, and that morning routine usually starts at 9 o'clock at night the night before. So we'll see how tomorrow morning goes. But as we get into it, today is a perfect example. Actually, this very day that we recorded this, like, I had some disruptive travel. We got in late, all those kinds of things. And it's like, okay, like, so it got to be 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I was way off my routine. And I didn't love it. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm not going to, I did, like, I had to pause. I stopped and I told myself, you can let this ruin your entire day, or you can go win the next hour, right? You can choose to, like, okay, there's nothing I can do to control the last 3.5, 4 hours that didn't go the way I wanted, but I can go and win the next one. And like you said, you build that individual success with each individual win. And the day turned around and it was great. Like, I didn't go 16-0 today, but I went 14-4, or 14-2 or whatever. And clearly math's not my best skill there, but with that example, but what about, like, we're trying to teach the athletes this, and I'm thinking about myself and my own individual family, right? I'm running a business, I'm coaching, I'm trying to be a great father, all of those kinds of things. Sometimes the parents are the issue, right? Like an athlete, a high school kid's trying to learn this. How can a high school kid teach their parent to be supportive of that and make sure that they can have eyes up and that they can win the hour and kind of have a reverse back and forth? Because maybe you just said, maybe they're not being taught well there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that as parents get busier, see what happens is a lot of parents, they're very directive toward their kids.
Right.
Some parents are, no, you're going to wake up at this time, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to, and that's probably needed, that
Yeah.
scaffolding for a little while.
Right.
But the truth is, when I have my daughters leave my house, I hope that they could do that stuff on their own.
Right.
Right? That it's not only happening because I have told them that it's going to happen. And so I do think it's important to sit down and just ask some questions, like, does your routine match your goals?
Right.
There's every high school football team. We just finished the state playoffs here.
Yep.
Right? They all want to win the state championship next year. Right? It's not realistic for some.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that, September asks what happened in June.
Right. Right.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
in July and all of these months leading up. And so sometimes our kids will say things, just asking them, what are your goals? What do you want to accomplish? And then say, okay, great. Can I give you some, if you really want to accomplish that, there's a price to accomplish that. We can help with the design of their day.
Right.
Now, we could be support. We had Eric Weddle on our podcast, and he made a statement. I'll probably butcher it. Go back and listen to that whole interview. He's one of the best.
What is awesome.
He was one of the best interviews. But he said something along the lines of, I will not be my kids' fuel.
Right.
I will not be their motivation. I will be their support. I will give them advice. So we can't be the fuel for the kids, but we can help them design a life that will lead to their goals. Pat Summitt, the coach at Tennessee forever.
Yeah.
You've probably seen this social media clip. We shared it on our social media, but where she told the story of her son getting cut in high school. And he came home and she said, my first thing was, who cuts Pat Summitt's in high school? That coach is bold. But the kid came home, he was devastated, and she said, do you want to work? And she said that phrase to him, I will not be your fuel.
Right.
But if you want to work, I will help you know what to do. So I think we could help with the design. But some kids, I think there's a lot of kids that are just floating through life.
Yeah.
I don't care if my daughters have, I don't care if it's sports or if it's academic or if it's career. I want to know what their goals are. And then we can start talking about, okay, if that's your goal, then let's do a little research together. I might not even know what they're talking about. I had one daughter who came home and said, I want to quit dance and play tennis. And I'm like, well, I know nothing about tennis. Your mom only knows stuff about dance.
Right.
I couldn't help her say, well, this is what good tennis players do.
Right.
But I could do some research and I could connect her with people and I could give her those opportunities, but I was never going to be her fuel.
Right.
So I think design versus fuel, that's what parents can do.
I love that. Principle 3, let's move on to that one. Everything matters. Embrace the boredom of consistency. Yeah. Is that, did I hit that one right? Is that correct?
So that's connected to principle 1 of win the hour.
Okay.
Yep, but it's another quote from Justin Sua, actually, where he talked about the only people he sees become great in professional sports are those who embrace the boredom of consistency.
Yeah.
Most people quit when something becomes boring.
Right.
What we teach athletes is, as soon as you become bored, that's where your opportunity begins, because 90% of people just quit.
Yeah.
So if you're going to keep pounding, if you haven't worked to boredom, then there's probably still people working with you. But when you've hit a ball off a tee so many times that you're sick of it, that's when people have stopped. And if you could put in that extra time, that's when you pick up ground. And that was the point he's making. We love to share that because, when the fun is done, that's when winners start to cut hay, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it applies especially to we've referenced it throughout, but it applies to nutrition, right? It applies to sleep. Yeah. It applies to attitude. It applies to how you're treating teammates, right? I mean, to me, that's a very important part, right? Like if you've got your routine dialed, and it's like, that's kind of boring. My nutrition's kind of boring, right? It's like probably dialed in too, is my
Oh,
guess.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it is so valuable for young people to put a routine together and simply execute that routine. I mean, we've had so many professional athletes on, golfers, Daniel Summerhays. Um, we talked to, it was actually Zach Jones, really good golfer right now with Brigham Young University, one of the top in the country, probably going to
Yeah.
play some pro golf. Um, if he were to walk you through, Sean, his putting routine,
Mm-hmm.
he will sit and practice 4-foot putts for like an hour.
Wow.
Now, would that get boring to you? Because that might get boring to me. And that's why most people aren't good putters,
Right. Right.
right? But those who like, I want to do well, I want to become a professional golfer, there's a price to be paid for that. And you start to realize as you dig into people's routines, and we asked that a lot. We had Ryan White on, Olympic swimmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Ryan is a backstroker. And she like knows the exact number of strokes it takes her to get across the pool and to get into her flip and to turn.
Right.
And Sean, she is so intentional. She even does her workouts. I forget what the number is. It's like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
She even does her workouts in reps of that number.
And that counts. Wow.
Because it's like,
Right.
so she is so intentional about that. And you start to see that in all these professional athletes, that they become great because they're willing to embrace the boredom of consistently executing a plan. And one other point with that, they aren't just coming up with random plans.
Right. Yep.
We have to be humble enough to go to someone who does something well, the way that we would like to do it, and to ask questions. How did you do that? How do you hit the outside pitch so well? What drills do you do? Like, please help me get into your mind and understand what you do. What's your routine? If we'll be humble enough to do that and then do it until it's so boring that we can hardly stand doing it anymore, that's where greatness lies, is beyond boredom.
Well, and if you think about that professional golfer, right? What is the most valuable putt in golf? It probably is that 4-foot putt, right? That you need to put in on the 18th green to win a cup, to win some bag to go along with it, right?
Yeah.
And you want that to be automatic. You want that to be so dialed in that you're not thinking about it, because you're controlling the psychology of that event as well, right? So
yeah. Do you know what gate work is?
No, tell me about it.
Well, no, that's my point, right? I golf a lot,
Yeah.
and Zach said, yeah, and I do my gate work, and then I get into and I'm like, what's gate work? And it's, if I understand it correctly, it's putting up tees, so your putter's going back through that gate of tees.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
Forward, and if you're off just a little bit, you're going to hit the tees. I mean, there's things that people who excel at things do that you and I don't even know the definitions of those things.
Right, exactly.
That's how intricate they are. And if you can imagine bringing back and forth your putter just between tees when you're a borderline professional golfer, that doesn't seem, I feel like if I could hit the ball like them, I would just go drive it over the net at the range all the time. But that's not how you become great.
Right.
And we've just picked up on that. It's incredible to hear the routines that people have who are truly great at stuff. And that's what we mean by the boredom of consistency.
Right. I'm not sure if I'm inserting this, but like practicing with a purpose. That might be one of your things, but like having that consistent practice. And I think you can start applying these, right? Like together, like practice with purpose, but at the same time, have your eyes up, all of the, and being able to see. Then you start to really put together the dynamics of team and everything that goes along with that goes along with it. So
Yeah. And one more example, Sean, that I
yeah,
think
please.
for me, nothing struck me more than going from playing college or high school baseball to playing college baseball. And
Hmm.
I played for a Hall of Fame coach. His name was John Herbold. And in high school, I had good coaches in high school, but the time we spent on the tee was not very significant, right?
Right. Right.
It's you get up and you take 8 swings in a cage, and there's people out there shagging balls for you. Very inefficient. I get to
Hmm.
college and I'm taking hundreds of swings
Right.
off of tees. It's like I graduated from high school baseball, a pretty successful career there, to t-ball. That's
Right.
what it felt like, right? Man, but that's how you build those muscles. I mean, all of a sudden I was like, what ab work am I doing?
Right.
Like, why is my body transforming? It was because I was taking like
1,000
400
hits. Yeah.
cuts off a tee every day. And so that's the stuff, right? And then you get there to college, and it's not just hitting off a tee. You place the tee in your stance where you should be hitting an outside pitch, and then
Right.
on the up further where you should be hitting an inside pitch. And you realize people who do this stuff, there's an intentionality. That's what you said, practice with purpose. The
Yeah.
word we use so much is intentional. You have to be
Right.
intentional. Put a routine in place. And if don't wait for the perfect routine to start.
Yeah.
Just start with the
Just
routine
start.
and then refine
Yep.
it.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Fourth principle here. And it might not be directly with your specific words, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but to be the idea of being resilient, right? Being resilient and creating the accountability and mental health that goes along with that. Talk about how that applies in the EF4 framework.
Yeah. So we wrote in our book that one of the greatest gifts that sports gives to the athlete is the opportunity to experience failure and learn to respond to it.
Right.
I love that for sports. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're an all-state performer or someone who's trying to make your junior high team. Sports is going to provide disappointment for you.
Right.
You can build that muscle of resilience if you respond the right way. So one of the things that we often teach, we wrote it in our book, is one of the greatest gifts that sports gives to an athlete is the opportunity to experience failure and respond to it. And that happens at every level, right? It happens at professional levels, but the kid who just lost a t-ball game that's devastated, he's learning resilience. She's learning resilience. And
Yeah.
sports, it's like resilience is this muscle that you could build if you respond to it the right way. There's different ways to respond to adversity. And some parents, this is where parents become a problem sometimes. They start giving kids excuses. Oh, your coach just doesn't like you.
Mm-hmm.
That kid's dad is a booster.
Right.
Or whatever it might be. That dumb ref.
The
Made all those
referee
bad
killed it. Yeah.
calls,
Yeah.
right? And when we start handing our kids excuses to respond to adversity, that's what they learn to do. When life gets hard, they start in making up all these excuses for why their life is crappy. But if you respond with goals and with work and with just that stick-to-itiveness that we hope kids have, then we build that muscle of resilience instead of excuse. I would much rather my children have a great life than a crappy life with a great excuse.
Right. Right.
And so it's just that mindset. We actually talked about this with Paul Peterson just this week on our podcast that came out this week. He was former Boston College quarterback and head football coach at Utah Tech University in St. George, Utah. And he talked about this concept of just so often, he called it snowplow parenting, that it's not it used to be helicopter parenting, but now it's snowplow parenting, where we're trying to just clear the way for our children. But if we'll start asking questions like, yeah, that's hard. Yeah, maybe your coach is favoring another kid. What's within your control? What are you going to do? How are you going to make it so obvious that they cannot keep you off the court or off the field?
Right. Right.
That is training our young people to respond to adversity with work and goals and adaptation and innovation instead of with pouting and blaming. And how much of our society, Sean, is like that right now? It's
Right.
just like,
A huge amount, right? Because
yes,
that was going to be my next, like, these are skills that you learn in a safe environment of sport, right? Like, it's easy. If you're in high school, basketball, football, swimming, water polo, whatever, if you fail there, the world is not over. I might feel like that as a high school athlete, but really the training ground of how you're going to respond to failure, because there is failure in life, right, really does apply to how you're going to respond in college and beyond, and in your professional world that you might be living on, or as a parent yourself, and how you train that.
absolutely. And we see it a lot in society. It's almost like people are content to have a crappy life with a good excuse for it.
Yeah.
And I just never want that to be me or those I love. And when we start feeding them excuses, when they hop in the car after a tough game, and we instantly go to referees and coaches and teammates and wind and rain and all this stuff, what
Yeah.
we're training them to do is to respond to adversity with pouting and excuses. And that's not
Right.
going to get anyone where they want to get in life.
Well, that's one of my favorites, and it's hard not to sometimes buy into it. But when I'm coaching, which I have coached for years, 30 years of water polo, right? You come in at halftime or after a game, and they start in with, like, the referee's like you didn't execute. Like, the referee, it has nothing to do with the referee. Like, you're going to let the referee decide if you're going to win or not. Like, those are the things that you can control, right, to be able to execute on. And honestly, if you're giving the referee an opportunity, if you're not the one controlling those individual actions, right? So I'm right there with that on the with the
Absolutely.
referee. Everyone blaming the referee, like, that's not a real life.
Yep. Absolutely. And the truth is that sometimes referees do make mistakes, big
Yeah,
mistakes.
they do, for sure. I'm not saying that, but, like, not on every possession, right? Like, not
Yeah.
so.
And it's even if, let's
Yeah,
say, even the referee is actually favoring the other team, um, putting your time and energy and everything toward that
right,
is not going to get you better anyway. It's
right,
not.
yeah.
So,
And my other favorite one is that, like, and this is as much parents in the stands as anybody, but athletes as well. Like, how many times you moaning about a call have you ever seen, ever in your world of sporting, the referee has turned around and said, "Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, let me reverse that call. Let me go back and make sure that you are the one. I've seen the error of my ways." Like, that's just not how the world works.
yeah. Well,
Like,
yes, absolutely. And the other side of that is, here you have these very imperfect players. If you've coached, you realize all the
yeah,
mistakes that you make in a game. So
yeah,
we're going to hold the referees to the standard of you need to be perfect,
right,
but we're not going to hold ourselves to that standard, right?
yeah.
Like, can you imagine if we treated a player who missed a basketball shot like we treat referees who miss a foul call? You know, yeah, things would not go well.
It
So,
would be ugly. It would be ugly.
absolutely.
Let's turn and talk a little bit about the framework of, especially for athletes, and mental health. I think that's an important topic for athletes, and there's a lot of things that are growing out there, and we've seen, right, attention on phones and attention, and some, like, how we can use sports to better people, and how just talk about how within your framework, we should be thinking about the overall mental health of our athletes.
Yeah. Well, first, I think we need to recognize that there are real mental health challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I share some statistics in our presentation that, during COVID and the CDC statistics, I forget the exact, but I know this exact statistic, that because I break it up the percent into a classroom, because sometimes we hear these big percents and
Right.
it's easy to always think it's somewhere else, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the fact that it's about um, 3 to 5 kids in a 30 kid class that at one point in high school will seriously consider taking their own life.
Right.
And then there's statistics in the same study that says one of the things that leads to healthy life, like beyond into adulthood, is making close connections in high school.
Right.
So obviously sports, it trends positively, though it's not perfect. We have athletes that struggle with mental health challenges as well. But when you have a group that you're connected to, when you have a coach that cares about you, when you have people that are cheering for you, right, it tends to lead to better outcomes with young people that are playing sports. And just feeling that connection, exercise is very good for mental health. Um, and having mentors in your life is very good for mental health. Having someone who will call you and say, hey, I realize you've been down a little bit lately, is very good for mental health and prevention of some of the bad results of mental health. That just all screams sports, right?
Right.
The one caveat I would give to that is I don't know if there's anything more painful than a young person joining a team thinking it will bring friends into their life only to feel ostracized.
Right.
And that goes back to that double-edged sword. Yes, being part of a team could be a huge benefit to mental health, and it could be even more devastating if you're part of a team and then feel left out by that team or not valued by those teammates. Then it becomes super painful to go every day to practice and feel like you're on the outside looking in. And so that's why we try to train people to be very intentional about looking out for their teammates, loving their teammates, valuing their teammates. So.
Yeah. And I mean, and one of the things that I think I recall from the presentation as we were talking about is like the idea of treating mental health just like you would treat a sprained ankle, right? Like of recognizing that there are symptoms that go along with that, seeking treatment. Are there any other words of advice that you would give around that? I mean, we could go real deep on this, but like
Yeah.
in the interest of time, maybe let's just talk a little bit about how we should create the construct of mental health and youth athletes.
Yeah, I think we need to teach our young people. There's an acronym that a lot of health professionals use. We've had Dr. Sheldon Martin, he's my brother, might sound familiar, but
Yep.
he's a doctor of behavioral health. We've had him on our podcast a number of times, and we'll have these discussions with him. He gave us an acronym. It's called ACT.
Mm-hmm.
When you see someone, going through a difficult time. For example, I mean, if you're a coach, you see a player limping, right? All of a sudden, you see a player limping, running around. What are you going to do as a coach? You're not just going to let them. You're going to say, "Hey, you okay? What's going on?
Yeah.
Where does it hurt?" So the first letter of the acronym ACT is ask.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. Simply ask, are you okay? Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And why would you say that? Whether it's a coach or a teammate that's asking, because you just seem a little withdrawn. You seem a little off. I'm just worried about you. You seem sad all the time. Most of the time when someone's thinking about taking their own life or experiencing severe levels of anxiety or depression, they will tell you if you ask them. So
right.
the first one is ask. The second is care. Just show compassion and caring for them. Whatever they're dealing with, just show them that you care. Sit with them, talk with them. The T is tell. Tell someone. Love your friends more than you love your friendship. If one of your friends is having a hard time, they're saying, "Man, I just think I want to end it. I just think this is getting too much for me. Life is too hard for me. Tell a coach, tell
Right.
your mom and dad, tell a teacher, tell a school counselor. I think if all of us, that's a very easy to remember acronym: ask, care, tell. But there are a lot of people who are struggling around us. If we have our eyes up, maybe to come full circle, we'll
Yeah.
see people, ask how they're doing, care about them, and then tell others if you're concerned. And we could save a lot of kids that way.
Yeah. Love that. Very cool. Okay, let's as we're moving through here, the fifth principle, compete without contempt.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite. Like I love sports. Everyone probably who's listening to this loves sports. I love rivalries. I love the I love working hard. But tell us what you mean by, as we're looking at compete without contempt.
Yeah. Compete without contempt. Contempt is obviously hatred.
Right.
You don't
Right.
you don't have to hate your opponent to compete against him. We capitalize and bold the word compete in our presentation.
Right.
We're not talking about not caring who wins. There's not a more annoying game to play. Like when I go play basketball at the church house and people are shooting half court shots and it doesn't matter, no one cares who wins or loses. I lose complete interest in that
Right.
setting, right?
Right. Yeah.
Compete. We got to learn to compete for things that really matter to us. So bold, capitalized, compete.
Compete. Go after it. Yep.
But your fuel does not have to be hate. If you're someone who has to hate your opponent to fiercely compete, you're not a true competitor. You're a hater. You're not a
Right.
competitor.
Right.
We share that quote from G.K. Chesterton that was given way back in the World Wars,
Mm-hmm.
English philosopher, but he said, the true soldier fights not because he hates what is in front of him, but because he loves what is behind him. So this principle teaches young athletes to let love be their fuel, to love to win, to love to compete. They love their coach. They love their teammates. They love their community. They love their school. They love and appreciate their parents who made so many sacrifices for them. There are so many things in the love category that could fuel your energy
Yeah.
and your desire. And we have just found that love is a more sustainable fuel than hate. Because if you have to invent things about your opponent, we see coaches do this all the time, try to drum up controversy,
Right.
take a quote out of context, something like that. If you need something like that to truly compete, then I don't know if you qualify as a true competitor, to be honest.
I was just gonna say, and do you have a good example of, because I feel like young people and athletes probably do this naturally. It's probably the parents again who like fuel that, or it's usually the
Yeah.
adults that have the bad behavior, right? Do you have an example of any schools or that have come together, like that have recognized, hey, this is an important thing, or maybe two schools that are both involved in your program that have overcome rivalries and some hatred that way?
Oh, yeah, we've had, so the most popular, if you go to our website, go to our social media pages, you'll see a bunch of kids in different uniforms holding up their eyes up, do the work bands, and taking pictures together, and they hashtag it and tag us in it,
That's
compete
cool.
without contempt. And you could tell that, they're sweaty, they've just played
Yeah.
a game, right? And they're just like, hey, when we're after we're done competing, like if I lived in the boundaries of that other school, this would be my best friend. That's
Yeah.
what we often teach. We've had schools come together. Two schools a while ago came together, and they decided that because of the vitriol sometimes between the two communities, one school broke off. The one school became too large, and the other school
Yeah.
had to break off, and then they became these natural rivals.
Right.
These two schools, both part of our program, decided that they were going to make a statement to the community before the game and came together. Cheerleaders, football team, coaches mixed up, put their arms around each other, took a picture, and labeled it Compete Without Contempt.
That's
And then
lovely.
they went to work on each other. Right? This is an important part. It's
Right.
an important part that compete. And then after, once again, hey, they realize if they lived in the same boundaries, they'd be best friends.
Right.
We have an example, Eric Weddle.
Yeah.
Eric Weddle tried to break into the league as a safety. If you see Eric Weddle, he doesn't look like a physical specimen.
Right.
But the guy's a Hall of Famer, going to be a Hall of Famer. Just incredible. And he actually talked about when he came in, no one on his own team would help him because he was the new guy trying to take their spot.
Right.
And he just made this commitment in his heart, I'm not going to be that guy. So not only those coming to his own team, but even those going to other teams, when safeties were drafted, he would call and say, hey, do you want to come work out? I could teach you a few things. He refused to make everyone that was a safety in the league his enemy.
Right.
And what he said is the benefit that came is I would show these guys some things I had picked up, and then I had to pick up new things to keep my job.
Right.
And he actually attributed that fact to his longevity in the league. That he was almost like another coach, that he was training up new safeties. And one of his greatest joys, he talked about on our podcast, seeing someone leave his team and go sign a big contract with another team and to think, I helped that guy.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
So there's great examples.
That is coaching, right? Like you want them to be successful beyond you and above you. So that's fantastic. Shad, what are the principles especially for athletes that we're missing, that we haven't talked about? Are there any that's burning a hole in your heart that you want to share here?
No, I think you've been very thorough. This is awesome. Yeah, I think this is the stuff that matters to us. Here's how we like package all of these together. We have 3 that we call the preparatory principles.
Okay.
Win the hour, compete without contempt, and be resilient. As you do those things, just picture an athlete that's winning the hour, that's being intentional with their time, that's winning in the classroom, that's winning at lunch, that's winning at practice, that's working when no one's watching. That's win the hour. At the same time, that athlete's competing the right way. They're helping people up on the court or on the field. They're not being a knucklehead attracting a bunch of attention to themselves on the court or belittling everyone else. They're just a good, solid person on the court.
Right.
They're competing the right way. And then they're resilient. They're that kid that's saying, hey guys, I know we're down, but let's go. Let's finish right. We got this. I know we lost that game, but let's just work. Let's work this out. That kid is going to be an incredible kid. And that spotlight is going to start to shine brighter and brighter. So those 3 principles prepare them to do the 4th principle, which is what we call the power principle, that has power to transform and change lives. And that is seek to bless. Now that you're doing all these things, you're going to be getting better. You're going to be getting more attention. Now with that, seek to bless people, not impress people.
Right.
And so those are the 4 principles, and they're all tied up in you keep your eyes up and do the work, notice people, and try to help people. And so that, in a nutshell, Sean, that is our program, what you asked me about today.
That's incredible. There's a quote on your website that I wanted you to break down, and it's, fear is a poor chisel with which to carve your future. Yeah. I love that. Tell me what you want the world to know about that quote.
Yeah. Oh gosh. It's the person who wrote The Traveler's Gift. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read that book, I forget his name, but you could put it in the show notes. The Traveler's Gift. It's a great book. It's this guy that goes back in time and he meets these historical figures that had to display real leadership. Uh-huh. And in the book, it's like a fictional leadership book where he goes back and the person teaches him a leadership principle. And when he learns that leadership principle, he's able to go on to the next, right. Travel to the next leader. This one was Anne Frank. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to Anne Frank and he's basically asking, how can you be so positive? And she said, I accept, or my head's not in the sand or something like this. I I understand the reality. I'm just not going to settle for the
Right.
reality.
Right.
And then she makes this statement in the book: fear is a poor chisel to carve one's future. So I want
Yeah.
to give that. That's not our phrase.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's
Yeah.
that. But think about that. How many young people don't try out for a team for fear of getting cut?
Yep.
How many opportunities we miss out on in life because we're afraid of failing?
Well, I deal with that with my own personal kids regularly. It's like, I don't want to make a phone call. It's like, make the phone call, right? Like
Yeah.
you're one conversation away from greatness in my world, I think. Like if you're willing to put yourself out there, and it's back to having your eyes up and looking for those individual opportunities. If you let fear overcome that, and I think that is something that's happening within the social context of of youth and for our society in general, is like we're becoming so much more isolated that we're afraid to have real conversations with other people. So
And the sad thing about not doing things because of fear is all you did was increase the probability to 100% that that
yeah.
good is not going to happen in your life.
Yep. Yep.
So maybe
Absolutely.
it was at only 20% before that it was going to happen, but now you've made it a 0% chance that that thing is not going to happen because you're not even going to try. So you're dropping your probability of good things to happen in your life if you let fear be the chisel with which you carve your future.
Right. So, Shad, last question here. Someone's listening here as an athlete, parent, coach. They're inspired, but don't know where to start. What's the first step for any one of those individuals to get started down this pathway and of some of these key principles that you're teaching? How should they be involved? How can they get involved? What are the ways that your organization can help them?
Yeah, well, if you go to the number four, A,
Yep.
especially for athletes, so e4a.org, and you could click there, contact us. We'll come anywhere to do a presentation.
Okay.
We'll go to a Pee Wee team, we'll go to a pro team, we'll go to a business, we'll go to a school, we'll go to a church. We've been all over. We love sharing these principles. So that's the simple answer, Sean, is just get in contact with us and let's talk. And we would love to come and visit with you, share our message. Also, all of these principles, we wrote the book, The Sportlight, and you
Yep.
can do that on our website. And you can listen to our podcast. All we talk about are these principles with different people. I
Yeah.
mean, so it's really cool just to bring on a pro athlete and say, here's our principle of win the hour. How do you say that in your world? What are
Yeah.
some of the things you've learned about these concepts that we're talking about? And to hear people talk about that, we've learned a ton. We've learned a
Yeah.
ton.
I
But
love
I
it.
would say, going back, if I were to say where to start, just start. Like if we're talking in general, move forward in life. I think so many people are frozen by thinking they need a perfect plan in order to start, and they like spend so much time and energy, sometimes months, weeks, and months, trying to get a perfect plan. The
Yeah.
truth is, if you want to get in shape, start working out
Just
and
just
refine
walk
it as
out
you.
that door. That's right.
You're not going to burn any calories planning, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so that, I think, just that inertia to get off it. It's like a rocket ship.
Hmm.
One of our podcast members shared this with us as well. That when a rocket gets up into space, there's that huge amount of energy to get it off the Earth, to
Yeah.
get it out of
Yeah.
the pull of gravity, and then once it's up there, it's just little bursts of energy, and it can fly forever. It's kind of like that with ourselves and with our goals. It
Right.
does take a lot of energy at first to get going, but once you're moving along and goals become second nature, you feel more awkward not doing them than doing them.
Right. Right.
And so just start, take that energy, whatever it is, to get going. And we had Brendan Schooler, New England Patriot, on our podcast. He said, in the morning, I treat sleep as my enemy,
Hmm.
like as my opponent.
Right.
He talks smack to sleep. You're not going to keep me in bed. And he says, I can't even tell you what I say to my bed on this podcast. But it's that attitude, right? Like, I am going to accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. Like, shut up. I'm not staying in bed. Like, just that grit to get going and get the inertia to get you off the earth and flying.
Cool.
So
love it. Love it. Well, Shad, it's been fantastic to have you on the podcast. Incredible concepts. I hope we can continue to talk. We have thousands of athletes that we touch out there. I want them to hear all of this because I think it's key. I think it's so important. Shad Martin from Especially for Athletes, 8 principles that can change how you compete, lead, and live. Eyes up, do the work, win the hour, 16-0. Everything matters. Embrace the boredom of consistency. Be resilient. Compete without contempt. Seek to bless, not impress. Be a lifter and have accountability. Here's what Melissa and I realized at that E4A event. These aren't just for athletes. They're for anyone who wants to use their influence, big or small, to make a positive difference. You have a spotlight. Maybe it's your kids watching you. Maybe it's your team looking to you for leadership. Maybe it's your social media following. Maybe it's just your neighbor who sees how you live. How are you using it? Are you seeking to bless or impress? Are you competing without contempt? Are you a lifter? And here's the challenge Shad gave us. Fear is a poor chisel with which to carve your future. What are you building your life on, fear or courage? If this episode resonated with you, here's what I need you to do. Subscribe to find your challenge, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Hit that subscribe button. New episodes every week. Share the athlete. Tag an athlete, parent, or coach. And who needs to hear this? Post it on your story and tag Game On LS. SQ Stringham, that's me. Go to e4a.org. Shad has mentioned that multiple times. Find all of the resources there. Listen to the Sportlight podcast. If you're a coach or organization, bring Shad in. This work matters. Just pick one principle. Don't try and master all 8 tomorrow. Pick one. Eyes up, win the hour, be a lifter. Whatever resonates, work on that this week. Tell us your challenge. Comment below. What principle is hardest for you? What are you using your Sportlight? We want to hear your story. Until then, remember, you have a platform. Use it well. Find your challenge and carve your future with courage, not fear. Go be great.